It is Midweek Extra. I'm Josh Sexton, joined today by Josh Williams, Mo Stewart and Kev Reilly, a crack team, to take us through Liverpool's 2-0 defeat to PSG in Paris. Before we get into all of that, we are once again brought to you in partnership with our mates at NordVPN. Get our exclusive NordVPN deal at nordvpn.com/TAW. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. If you go for the 2-year plan, you'll get 6 months for free to browse the internet with that extra peace of mind and the ability to change your virtual location so you can access geolock content which can allegedly be used for things like Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs, but don't say you heard it from us. That's nordvpn.com/TAW. Now that the pleasantries are over, gents, unfortunately we do have to pick the bones out of last night. Changes to the team beforehand, Kev. I came into the boozer and we sort of all had a bit of like a yeah, but maybe no as well. I was surprised by how much the shape changed. Like when I saw the team, I was like, he's done well to get most of the defensive players on there, or at least the lads who think about defending as much as they do about attacking. Then the change of shape kind of threw me off a little bit, and it almost smacked of a manager. And I know Craig made this comparison on Twitter last night about the sort of Brendan Rodgers going 5 at the back thing. It did have those vibes of a manager who's like sort of running out of ideas for how I'd stop a team this good here.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't sure about it, the team certainly weren't sure about it. I appreciated the fact that he was trying something different. You mentioned when coming into the pub, a lot of people had different sort of viewpoints on how this was going to go. Some people were nervous, some people were apathetic, some people were excited, and that's sort of the state that we find ourselves in. Personally, I was keen to see what he could do here, because he talked a big game about PSG and how he'd been thinking about how they play and how to counteract that. He's had a long time to think about a plan, and ultimately a lot of people will find any reason to make fun of Arne Slot and to dumb down his ideas and call him silly or whatever, and that's fine. But I feel to have the brevity to try something at least, I think is better than just coming in with the same old plan, particularly against what we saw against City. I didn't want to see that again, and yeah, it's not worked out. Ultimately, the players haven't had time to work on it. Everyone seems a bit unsure of themselves. Particularly the work that Konate has to do, basically covering a centre-back and right-back position, I think, was just asking an awful lot of him. He's not done really well with it, but I mean, who would? Out of the entire squad and in any squad, really, who's going to be able to cover 2 positions with 2 absolute speedsters, up against, it was Dewey and Mendes out there, Nunez out there. Who was it out there? Right
on
back,
the left
back.
Nuno Mendes.
Mendes,
yeah.
Which was incredibly tricky because they just exploited that. I noticed that basically every single threatening attack that PSG had was our right-hand side, their left. I think they only do 2 down our left, and that's the penalty non-penalty that Konate cuts in with a brilliant challenge, and the other one where the ball cuts across to Dembele and he misses. But everything else is focused down that flank, and it just seemed like we didn't really have a plan for that. But yeah, another thing that sort of irks me about it is the fact that you want belief in a Champions League team. You want tactical solidity. So it felt like that was maybe what he was going for, but it felt like such a fall from grace from last year. In terms of our quality throughout the tournament, in terms of our quality in the Premier League, it seems like a massive drop off to show up in Paris and just kind of have a plan that's backs to the walls, a little bit defeated, and the language, particularly at the end of after the game, I think he says we're under fire or we're in protective mode or something like that. Maybe Mo can help me out. I don't know what he said. Something similar to that.
Yeah.
And that language just. You can think it, I think, as the coach, but I don't necessarily want him to say it after the game because I feel like that mentality was throughout the mentality throughout the squad was basically that for the entirety of the game.
I'm sort of worried now, Josh, when I watch them, that things, like at least the message from the manager that must be coming because of a lot of the moves that different players are making, like it's not the same players making the same mistakes. I mean, it is, but it just so happens to be all the players. That basically the message is too overcomplicated. Like even when I watched Curtis Jones come on last night and immediately do the exact same thing that all the midfielders and all the attackers have been doing the whole game, which was holding the ball for way too long, finding a way to manoeuvre yourself into the most complicated area of the pitch and try and get the ball basically to the closest fella, no matter how many bodies are in between you. Like if you're already overcomplicating the message and then you suddenly change everything as well, it all just kind of adds up to this overcomplicated mess that we see.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a piece earlier in the week on that sort of thing. It feels like lately, especially against City, for example, it feels like lately there's a bit of a detached team where half the team are pressing and the other team are sitting in some form of block 50 yards deeper. And it's like there's two coaches and they're in separate rooms. And he's got 4 players who he's looking after and he's got 7 players who he's looking after. And it's kind of a bit detached and stuff like that. And when you're seeing that sort of thing, it's either a case of the message is unclear or the players have stopped listening, to be honest. I think in this game, I agree with a lot of what's been said already about the back. I mean, I don't think we can call that a back 3, it was a back 5. Yeah. We didn't, at what point did we reach the 3? We got beyond our own halfway line about twice in the whole game, mate. So it was definitely a back 5. But I welcomed the change, and I think crucially, the problems we've had in the wide areas this season with our wingers, they're the best fullback pairing in the world for me. I think Mendes is a joke, the level that he's competing at. So I understood opting against wingers in this game, especially considering what we've got from them this season. This was just not the game to deploy wingers. Maybe you can get like a long throw, Joe Gomez, you can get set pieces in there with an extra centre half. You've got flying wing backs, both fit and available. But the way it played out, just I hated it, to be honest. I hated watching it, I really did. That full 90 minutes, horrible for me. So defeated throughout the game, so fearful and scared, and yeah, it's painful to watch a Liverpool team like that, where you go into a game and you just like, it genuinely like watching like Dyche's Burnley against Klopp's Liverpool a few years ago. Genuinely like that. If both teams were silhouettes, both teams were shadows, and you didn't know who was playing, you really wouldn't think it was the champions of England against the European champions. That the level that we've stooped to over the course of not even 12 months really, since the last time we faced these. The funny thing about it, by the way, I checked last time we faced them in that stadium, we had 1 shot. This time we had 3 shots. A little bit of an improvement.
You know what you're worried about, lad?
Yeah. I know, yeah.
The thing about it is you're so right there, Josh, but at least Dyche's Burnley are used to playing that way. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
We are not. That is not how Liverpool are supposed to play. And so it was unsurprising when they all looked like they had no idea what they were supposed to do. Because you can look at it and say, well, from the makeup of the squad, maybe there are some who would suit that system. We talk about how Kirkes plays like he could be a wing back anyway. Frimpong obviously is not really a defender, not really a winger, kind of in that in-between phase. So you can think, okay, well, it might suit them too. They've got to work on it. They've got to have the chance to do it. And like Kev said, that Slot said he had been thinking about this plan for a while. Had he told anyone? like had the players...
Is that what he said?
Well, he'd been thinking about a plan for a while to come up with... He'd had a long time to think about a plan against PSG.
For PSG. You get the impression with Slot, don't you, that he's like in the bushes with binoculars, loving a PSG train. Yeah, he admires them that much.
But if he was, then I'd be even more worried. Because if he thought that this was the idea... Because fundamentally, the issue with this, and I'm like Josh, like, whenever someone talks about a back 3, it ends up being a back 5. The reality is it's always going to be a back 5. And then so suddenly half of your outfield players are defenders. And what happens when you are trying to defend, when you've got all these defenders, is that when you win the ball back, what's the plan? What's the outlet? And the outlet should be the wing backs. But we did such a bad job of getting the ball to them that the ball just ended up kind of pinballing around the midfield and then went to PSG, and then we were back on the defensive once again. Again, something that me and Josh have discussed a few times. Cesc Fabregas, one of his principles is that you don't defend better when you've got more defenders on the pitch. Because sometimes you've got too many defenders. And I think the first goal is a really good example of this. Like, there's 4 Liverpool players around Desiree Doué when he takes that shot. And all of them are a bit like, are you blocking? And so by the time the block comes in, it's late and it's at a weak angle and it helps it go over Reilly. If there's 2 players there, one of them's flying at his face and the other one is sitting back. There's more decisive action. So I understand the principle of wanting to change something. I understand the fact that going into it and seeing more of the same from City would have been a disaster. My question is this the game to be changing it against. Because if you're unsure of your plan and you're going up against a very good team who are very sure of their plan, I can tell you what's going to happen. They're going to be the better team.
I sort of, it's strange really, because I think I probably concur with what you were saying there, Josh, about how if that was Sean Dyche's Burnley, you could kind of be like, okay, because that's, like, in a sense, I think I almost went in with that mentality. And like when I saw the team, I was like, I'm just going to treat this as if we are. Like, we're going to suffer here in moments. I'm sure there's going to be times when PSG pick us apart. And yet when it got to like 20 minutes, I was like, it's kind of not been a bad start. Like in terms of European away, where I think the other team is that much better than us, in terms of, as you say, splitting the team into two, where some of the lads are so front-footed, it was mainly the creative players and the lads up top that I was like, you're frustrating the hell out of me, because lads like Kirkes and Joe Gomez and stuff behind you are doing their job. It was like Ekatike and Wirtz and McAllister, who I was looking at and going, you're really letting the side down here because you just keep losing the ball and meaning they have to defend all over again.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bit of... I thought Ekatike was terrible, to be honest, but I have a bit of sympathy for him, because every time he gets the ball, there's one player within his vicinity, and that's Wirtz. And every time Wirtz gets the ball, there's one player within his vicinity, that's Ekatike. So that was the issue I had with the changing system. My big thing was, how on earth are we going to score a goal here? Because you've got a really narrow attack unless your wing backs can get high, which we saw that was a problem because we could never see the ball. And if your attack's really narrow, and one of them in particular is not like a threat in behind in Wirtz, it's going to be so easy to squeeze us, and it was. It played out like that. But the Dyche stuff isn't just. It's not just like sitting off and trying to stoke pressure. We did everything like Dyche would be in charge. Mamardashvili was hitting long goal kicks aimlessly, just volleying into the sky. We get a free kick at one point on the halfway line, and we're all made up, and we view it as a chance to score a goal. And Van Dijk goes up and everything. I can't remember who takes the free kick, but whoever takes it, the keeper just catches it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
honestly, that did my head.
And we did long throws. It was proper Dyche. It really was.
But without the sort of aggression.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And the thing with Dyche,
not the confidence, really.
Yeah, the thing with Burnley, but there's obviously a massive gap in player quality between Klopp's Liverpool and Dyche's Burnley. So you're within your rights to think, right, we need to do anything we can here. For Liverpool to be doing that, okay, they've got a better team. It's PSG, the best team in the world as far as I'm concerned. But the gap isn't to that level, to that extent, where you are literally just lying there, just waiting to get battered, essentially. So I really struggled with it. And even though it was 2-0, and you can genuinely label that as a good result because we're technically still in a tie, could have been 5, mate. Could have easily been 5. If it was a hotter day for them in front of goal, could have been 5. Like they go through a period against Chelsea where in the first tie they score with their last shot, their second to last shot, and their third to last shot, right? And they go into the Stamford Bridge leg and score with the first shot and the second shot. So they go through a period over the course of the tie against Chelsea where they score 5 shots in a row. So they're capable of being really clinical, really hot. And they weren't in this game, and I think we're really lucky that they weren't, because if they were, we'd be talking about a massacre here, I think. I don't know if that's too harsh or...
No, I agree. I think that Ousmane Dembele did us all a favour, because he was the main culprit. At least 2 of the ones that you'd expect someone who just won the Ballon d'Or to put away in his sleep, and he skied them over the bar. But maybe it was almost because he wasn't concentrating, because he wasn't like, I have to put this one away, because if I don't put this one away, this fantastic team will punish it. More is like, we'll get another chance. And they would. They got another chance, and they got another chance. And it was, if you're going to be as defensive-minded as that, you need to be able to stop the opponents. So, for example, when Liverpool did that against Arsenal away, they did a good job of actually stopping. I think it was like 8 shots to 7. So it was an even game, and Arsenal probably helped us into it. But in this situation, there was none of that. And Josh talks about how great PSG are. PSG are a great team. Monaco beat them at home a month ago. Liverpool are as good as Monaco. Liverpool should be better than Monaco. Chelsea scored 2 goals there. And yes, they conceded all those late goals, but...
Chelsea were in the game up until about 70, was it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And Liverpool, the league table tells you Liverpool should be better than Chelsea. And neither of those teams turned up with a defeatist attitude. And I felt like Liverpool turned up with a defeatist attitude. And it bit them on the arse.
And yeah, like, I think I'm maybe trying to convince Joshua Moore of something I'm not going to get away with here, Kev, but like, in terms of turning up to be defensive, in terms of turning up to suffer in the game, and I take Mo's point about, you know, against Arsenal, for example, I think Liverpool do a better job of stopping them. I think Arsenal clearly play into Liverpool's hands more than a PSG would. PSG are so cutthroat that I think it's harder, really, and you will have to suffer more in games. I thought before the goal, and obviously the goal then like changes things really, but before the goal, Liverpool just did suffer quite well. There were not many occasions where, besides my own like insecurity about this team, where I was like, oh, like Liverpool are well out of this tie, really.
Yeah, interesting that you touch on sort of Arsenal, because PSG versus Arsenal sort of fascinates me. I would love to see how Arsenal handle PSG. Do you know what I mean? A typically defensive side. I think Arsenal would probably just get torn apart, and you know, it doesn't stack up for the quality of the Premier League if you're just getting torn apart by PSG. I understand they're a different side now and they're younger and they're coached by a very, very good manager. But in terms of the mentality and the solidity mentally and being under a lot of pressure, I think that was there, but you could still sense trepidation, couldn't you? I mean, the situation for the first goal for Dewey, like Mo says, nobody's committing to it, so there's not that sort of confidence to make the right decision, or somebody just to own it, really. And he's surrounded by 3 or 4 different players, and it's one of those. I mean, the goal itself is incredibly crazy, and I'm sure Arne Slot's going to talk about that. You know, that was their first chance, and they scored from it, and it was also a crazy balloon that just goes in. But for me, you've got to face up, Josh. You can't. Gravenberch's turning his back. I think Van Dijk's just sort of slightly behind. He's about to turn his back. There's 2 of them. I initially thought it had come off Van Dijk. I don't know why nobody's just going in for the challenge. I think there's a lot of fear about giving a foul away there. But ultimately, you need to be brave, and you need to back yourself in that situation. Yeah, you might give a foul away, but you have to put a challenge in, otherwise he's going to get a shot off. And somebody of that quality is always going to have a really good chance to get a shot off. So it's just all down to the fear factor to me. It's, you know, the boys looked really, really scared, didn't they? They just looked terrified the entirety of the game, and I think that plays into how we played. It's not ideal. So that first goal was a bit of a shocker, but you're right. There was resilience in the way that they took it on the chin. They didn't back off. They were still as aggressive as they could be when a team like PSG moves the ball around like that and just makes you look like a headless chicken. You could see that the effort was still there. You could see that them still communicating. So it was better than City, but you know, it's a really, really low bar.
Do you know what? I don't know what is worse though when you think about it, because the City game, right? Like, that was obviously abysmal, but it's abysmal because the players give up. Essentially, they get to a point where they just stop playing. In this game, they didn't give up. They kept going the whole 90. But it's almost just as much of an indictment on the manager, because despite keeping going and applying themselves, they couldn't lay a glove on them. They couldn't get near them, mate. So, you know, I don't know if it was the plan or what, but like the distances, you know, as I said, you couldn't lay a glove on them. Couldn't lay a glove on them for the whole game. Couldn't get near them. They were toying with us. It was embarrassing. So I honestly don't know what the worst. It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place, isn't it, really? I mean, you can choose to go out by like just essentially giving up fight, which I'm sure is probably worse, to be fair. But then there's the other side, which you just, from like a unit perspective, a coaching perspective, you're on a different planet to what PSG showcased.
And that's kind of a little bit what you saw in terms of the difference between a team that's given up and you think, or a team that's trying the hardest and still not doing it. There's a difference between a team that wants to try and attack and a team that's so scared of conceding that they're willing to not attack. So obviously, we're probably going to come on to talk about the subs and the timing of the subs and how everyone was saying, why is there no subs? I think what you saw was a team and a coaching staff who were more scared of 3-0 than they were of desiring 2-1. I think the idea of conceding a goal was so much in their head, and okay, 3-0, that's it, it's over, the tie's done, we've got another game, that they weren't willing to throw out and try and get the 2-1 and try and put it more in their balance. And again, when we're talking about Liverpool, and yes, people might say you're just any other team, but that's not how Liverpool is supposed to think going into a game. Liverpool should always believe that they should go out there and score a goal against anyone, win a game against anyone. And I think fundamentally that overarching idea of being so scared of conceding a third and being out of the game seeped into everything, and that's where you get into situations where players are not making runs that they're supposed to make. And like, I think Joe Gomez was actually in the PSG half more than Kirkes was. That definitely wasn't the plan.
And Kirkes actually probably had a better time going forward than Frimpong did.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's just, again, if they'd have had longer to work on it, then they may have had a little bit more belief in what they were doing. But I don't think they had belief in what they were doing, and so therefore the fear kicked in, and so it was just a bit of a half and half. So I don't know which is worse.
Honestly, what from a coach's perspective, from Arne Slot's perspective, what looks worse? If you can't get your lads to even run, which is probably worse, to be fair, or versus they are actually running, they just can't get near them.
This is the thing I would say. Like from the City game, especially for me being in the ground, it felt like the air wasn't necessarily out of our balloon when City scored, but it definitely was for the players. Like, we were still going until it went 2 basically, and then suddenly it was like, well, okay, like, you know, maybe at half time we'll come in, and then it goes 3. And it was pretty clear from the moment the first goal went in, the players were just on like a crash course to race to the bottom then basically. Whereas last night, even with the Doué goal, and the Doué goal I think sums up everything you've said there, where it's like there's basically just 4 lads who run towards the ball. Wirtz ends up skipping the wrong side of him, which completely then cuts, I can't remember, maybe it was Frimpong who was in that position, or Konate, for the Doué then to come inside and then suddenly drag more players towards the ball. And it's just like no one's got any idea of what they're meant to do. But then, like, again, there's part of me that's like they respond quite well to the goal, or at the very least, PSG pay us enough respect to be like, these are still dangerous. So we're gonna slightly, you know, just almost like in a boxing match, where they're like, just gonna put my guard up for a second and see what they throw at me here. And I don't know, Josh, like going into half time last night, I still didn't feel anywhere near how I felt going into half time against City, because I'd seen at least an improvement, again from a very low base here, but an improvement on that sort of brittle mentality that we saw at City.
Yeah, I mean, City probably was worse. Like, I mean, it's probably clear that, isn't it? I mean, if your players just stop playing for you, that's obviously the worst, the lowest of the low.
And the captain comes out and admits it.
Yeah. But I think the thing is with City, we had a decent half an hour.
Yeah.
In this game, nope. We just so. It was painful. Honestly, it was painful. It was one of the worst.
Just see you reliving it in your head. It's tough to watch, to be honest.
Yeah. Just again, from the manager's perspective, just they're on a different level to us there, and it shouldn't have been a chasm like that. And I've had a lot of sympathy for him all season, because of the voids in the team and things like that. This is one of the few games, and City was one of the few games where he's had actually a little bit of depth. You got like players like Gakpo and Jones and Salah and McAllister on the bench and things like that. You can use these players. You got options for once. But coaching wise,
yeah.
I mean, you're up against the very best. That's one caveat I'll throw in there. They're the best team in the world for me, and they're the best team I've seen in years as well.
And I think he's the best manager in the world at the moment as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
They are so impressive, but they're not to the level where that Liverpool team should be turning up, shaking hands on 2-0. No. And that's kind of what happened, really. Yeah. I mean, we were glad to get out of there at 2-0. And I was hoping today that there was not going to be any kind of like, they played well. You know, it wasn't that. It wasn't that bad.
I'm sorry, mate.
Is that your stance?
No. But I guess I'm just sort of trying to be almost devil's advocate, but in a nice way, trying to like be balanced for the sake of this podcast.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
As much as anything.
But if there was more attacking attempt, like the 2-0 margins, you know, it's bad. But what's funny is if it was 3-1 and we'd scored, I think the mentality would be different. I'm not saying like the mentality would be like we're going to go through it, but the mentality of we can damage these here. We can, you know, we can lay a glove on them. We can do something. I think when you have a game like that where, like Josh says, you don't lay a glove, where's the hope? You know, in an attacking sense, there was just nothing there at all. There was no threat. They have 18 shots and we have 3, none of them on target. And their fluidity just makes us look like a joke. You know, they're just so fluid. And they're a team that everything comes off. So there's little like shoulder passes and flicks and and then Ekitiki's trying a flick every 3 seconds, and it's what are you doing? Yeah. It's just I think they've met their match and they're thinking, Christ, you're what we used to be, and that's just done them in ultimately, I think.
Do you know, even little things like throw-ins though?
Yeah.
Have you seen the clips doing the rounds of Mendes' throws? There's 3 clips of
They're
Mendes.
those flat ones that go like
I mean,
30
he's
yards.
brilliant in, by the way. What a player he is, by the way. But some of his throws, he was throwing it just right through our structure. And they were generating attacks on the back of his throws. And we've just conceded twice, I think, against Man City from throws.
From our own throws.
Like, that's just like...
Mo, I heard you saying on the late challenge the other day, because obviously you're sat in the press conference, and even Kev was referencing what the manager said in the press conference last night, which again to me just shows the level of underconfidence I think you're dealing with in the manager, but then also how much that's translating to the players at the moment. The start of the second half is what really worries me, and that's where I would say it's really not dissimilar to City. There's loads of ways in which it is dissimilar to City, but the way they come out second half, so much more ragged. It looks to me like PSG have adapted, and like whatever Slaughter said at half-time has made Liverpool even less confident in what they're doing. And you'd said on the late challenge, you're kind of not bothered about what he says to us in the press conference as long as what he's saying to the players is translating. The trouble and the sort of biggest concern for me is at the moment, like he says stuff like that as he did after the final whistle about being in protective mode, but also he must just be saying the same thing to the players.
Well,
it was survival mode, by the way.
Yeah. So against City, they came out from the second half really early. So in my mind, I was like, okay, he's laid into them at half time. And to be honest, good, because I would have done too. That goal just before half time, criminal, can't have that. The way that they played in the early part of the second half, it says to me, again, this is just me projecting, it felt like he hadn't really been saying much. What had been happening was the players had been saying, well, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And there was a lot of confusion going on, a lot of people not understanding what they were doing and what their teammates were doing. And that took up all the time. So there was no, okay, now the first things you need to remember in the second half is more of this, less of that, less of that. There was no sign of that. There was no sign of, okay, if you've got one thing you want to remember that we need to do better, it's this. I didn't see that. I saw, like you said, more ragged, less cohesive.
Yeah, weaknesses emphasised. Yeah.
And look, things are difficult for Arne Slot at the moment. We acknowledge that. That is something that he has absolutely got to be better at. And the frustrating thing for me about all of this is that was his superpower last year. And like, you can talk about, yes, he's got different set of players who will respond differently. Even aside from the idea of the players being better at implementing whatever game plan he's doing, the fact is that the last year, there were so many times where he watched 45 minutes of football, saw, okay, they're doing this, they're doing that, we can therefore do this and do that and we'll be better. And he said it, and it happened. It doesn't look like he's able to even identify what's happening or going wrong at the moment. And if he is, and he's saying it to the players, they're certainly not listening. So I don't understand how that part can be so different. That's the probably the most nagging thing in my mind at the moment. But I think for them to be aware that they hadn't had a shot on target at half time, which I'm
He
sure
hadn't
they
had a
were.
shot. Never mind the shot on target,
Yeah.
not a shot.
And you can tell that they were aware of that because the shot that Ekitike takes 4 minutes after the second half. Like, that's someone saying, okay, we need to shoot, we need to shoot. And yeah, maybe...
It was actually the wrong choice at the time.
It was
though.
the complete wrong
Kirkus
choice.
is right there.
Exactly. But that's what I mean. It's just like he's aware of the fact, okay, we've got to start shooting more. But the fact that they didn't get one on target the whole game, and that was the only one that actually went further than 3 yards because the other two were blocked almost immediately. It just... I don't understand, going back to something Josh said earlier, I don't understand what the plan was to score. Like in an ideal world, how was it going to work? Like, I looked at the numbers. Wirtz passed to Ekitike 3 times the whole game. And they were the only 2 attackers. Like, I don't know how that's going to work.
And even if that's the plan, 3 passes, like that doesn't make sense.
No.
I think, like, just to touch on what Mo's talking about there, is like there's also a responsibility of the players to recognise their own shortfalls as well. And for the second goal in particular, I know that Gravenberch's getting a lot of heat because he's caught wrong side there of Kvaratskhelia. but it's actually down to Szoboszlai not tracking Kvaratskhelia run. He passes off Nuno Mendes to either Frimpong or Gomez behind him, or Gravenberch, fine, to say, I'm taking Kvaratskhelia. And then he just lets him run behind him. He's not checked. Like, I don't understand how you can't be looking over your shoulder when you've got somebody as dangerous as that in that position. I've watched it loads, and the run he makes, like, he's not particularly sprinting into the space. He just sort of goes, he's not picking me up here, so I'm off ski. And then Gravenberch has got to react to that. He's caught wrong side, and that's essentially it. Yeah. I know there's circumstances that the goalkeeper could have done a lot better.
It's borne out the same sickness as the first goal for me, where like the thing I've put in the agenda is I'm worried about how bad we are at facing up. Like, it seems like we only ever make tackles when they're like panicked from behind. We never keep bodies in front of the ball. I'm seeing this time and again this season where lads who cut inside don't even have to do it particularly cleverly. They could completely telegraph it, and still Liverpool players would be like twisting and turning and making the body smaller. Yeah, and like, again, first one being a deflected goal, you can kind of almost make some excuses for him in that one. The second one, again, it's just like sheer panic.
Yeah, and there's the chance as well that results in a great save from Maradashvili where it comes off of McAllister's arse. I mean, how many times this season have we seen balls fire off players' arses, sometimes ending up in the goal? It is that thing of not facing up, and you know, it was levelled at Arne Slot after the City game by a journalist. You know, these are the basics of football. So what do you think's going on here? The fact that there's the basics just aren't being followed through is just it's terrifying. That is just not good enough at this stage of the season. You know, you can have all the hope in the world, you can have all the press conferences in the world, you can have all the positivity in the world, but if you don't do the basics, then it's just not good enough. The hands behind, we were talking before we went on air. The hands behind your back, you make your shape smaller. Yeah. You're making your frame smaller.
Especially if you twist to your side as well, then it's
you're half
the side of you to aim at.
It's ridiculous, and I know it's like part of modern football. I know people want to avoid giving silly handballs away, but as long as your hands aren't in an unnatural position, that doesn't mean, like, if your hands are here and it's hitting you, it's fine. Don't put them behind your back. It's part of modern football. I'm not a massive fan of it, and for me, it's just get the defensive basics right. Focus on the ball, get a challenge, and take ownership.
Yeah, and if players are clever and confident, Josh, I think you take calculated risks. Like, Mamadashvili looks terrified the moment that Kvaratskhelia sort of bounces off Gravenberch, and I'm almost wondering in my head if he's worried that Gravenberch's going to, give him a nudge, almost in the way that Konate gives someone a nudge late on as well. And if he does, then if I go to feet, he's going to fall over me and it's going to be a penalty. And it's like, well, you weigh that risk up if you're a clever footballer. Like, even the one that Konate does, which is the penalty that gets overturned, he's kind of weighed up that risk. Like, yeah, my knee might make contact with his standing foot here, but I'm going to back myself enough, whether it's on instinct or not. There's clearly enough of a sort of base level of confidence for him there to be like, I'm just going to have to get this ball. Otherwise, like, what other choice have I got? And that's kind of where I keep ending up with Liverpool players, is the amount of times they're sort of not taking the calculated risk. And then actually what happens is, like, worst case scenario every single time, where it is going off players' heels and arse and stuff, is just like infuriating to watch happen over and over again.
Yeah, I think the goalkeeper hesitates.
Yeah.
And he's torn between a few posts, and that's what tends to happen when you get to a point in a manager's tenure where he's kind of tried a lot of things, and then you've got loads of different ideas in your head because he tried that 3 months ago, and then he's doing this now, playing a back three today. And you get to a point where sometimes it does just take the next guy to come in with a completely clean slate and start again from scratch. And you kind of build it from there then. But the hesitation and stuff like that, I think it stems from I think Liverpool at the best, even last season and years under Klopp, were just really proactive. And I think now Liverpool are becoming more and more passive, more and more reactive, where they're not quite sure what to do. Is he my man? Is he your man? I said a few weeks ago, I would like everyone to just defend a bit more like Kerkers, where Kerkers has no doubt when he's defending. He's just straight in there, standing on your heels. He's like a wasp. Honestly, you'd be in like
he was the hands behind the back.
Yeah. Well, that's something you can give against him. Yeah, I had to go at him early in the season, didn't I, for diving to the ground.
But it's calculated.
Yeah, but he's kind of stopped that anyway. He doesn't really do that no more.
Yeah.
But the desire to get tight to someone and not give them an inch, straight in there, no hesitation, proactive. He defends most like a Liverpool player, I would say. Up there with Sabot, funnily enough, two Hungarians for the most part. But everyone else is just gradually just being a bit more reactive, a bit more fearful of of what to do, and the Gravenberg thing, you know, when Gravenberg runs through and he's kind of behind his man, again, that stems from the decisions made regarding the system. You know, you go man to man. It was a back five, but it was a kind of man to man approach to defending, and them kind of like runs from deep, like a third man sort of vibe. If someone doesn't go with them, and when you're playing a man system, he's gonna get in, and that's what happens. So, yeah, disaster.
And the substitutions, Mo, the manager sort of creating headlines in a way that I don't. It's really hard when I sort of try and judge his abilities in the media, because again, like the thing I've really tried to avoid doing on the show, because I'm wary of how much I've done it on shows all season, really, is make the Klopp comparison. Klopp comes over for the Legends game and you see how just brilliant he is straight away with the media and with the fans and all these kind of things. I feel like Klopp was also really good at like not necessarily making statements when it was the wrong time to make a statement. I just think like I'd love if the manager was sat here now for him to explain to me Cody Gakpo getting on over Mo Salah in the first place, but then Trey Ione even getting on over Mo Salah. I didn't necessarily disagree with Curtis Jones and Isak coming on. In fact, Isak is probably the one footballer in the Liverpool squad who gives me a little bit of hope at the moment, because he's kind of, in a way, not necessarily stung by this, you know, awfulness of the past couple of months. Like, he gets injured at Tottenham in a moment where Liverpool actually in a fairly good moment. I'm just watching Salah on the bench last night, and I'm like, it was a signal to me of how much this relationship has broke down, and not a tactical thing for me at all.
I'm not sure. Like, I think I'm all right with Trey Ione, to be honest. I think he's been good, and he's calm, and he's able to keep the ball. And at that point in the game when you really are fearful of 3, 4, 5, I can see why that made sense.
But at that point, we were throwing bodies forward and swinging it into the box. So
I think if you put Ione on, it's not necessarily because of what he's going to do with the ball. I think it's more to do with, for me, the fact that he's a kid. You can just tell him what to do, and he'll just do it, and he'll run for you, basically.
What I disagree with is I don't think Salah on the bench, or Salah not coming off the bench, was a statement or anything to do with their relationship. I think we have to be honest. It's to do with the fact that Salah has not looked good the last 3, 4, 5 times he's come off the bench.
I agree.
He's been on the pitch.
I agree.
That is why he's not playing. That's why he wasn't starting. And you put Isak on because you are hoping that you still think that, yes, he's way below fitness, but you're hoping if there's one chance in the game that he will take it.
Yeah.
Like, at the moment, if there were Liverpool didn't have a chance after the subs had come on. But if there was one chance for Liverpool in the last 20 minutes and it went to Salah, how confident are you that he would take it? Because I'm not. Like, we saw that against City.
Yeah.
Like, the one in the first half and then the penalty. Like, look, I love Mo Salah. I feel like I should need to reiterate this because I can already hear what everyone else is saying based on what I'm saying.
Mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
But...
Rather you than me.
Sorry, people say what they like. The point is that you have to be honest and say, look, like if there was like a supercut of his last 30 shots on goal, like what we would see is a guy who's not confident in front of goal anymore, who's not taking them as well and or as instinctively as he used to anymore, and when he's not doing that, all of the other stuff, he's never really been that good at any of the other stuff. So I feel like this is more than than ever, Slot is able to say, well, I mean, it's obvious why I didn't put him on. And Salah can be upset about that. And Salah will hopefully be upset about that. And Salah will start against Fulham and hopefully show everyone why that was a bad decision. But for me, I kind of like I get it. Like it didn't even occur to me that he hadn't come on until Steven Gerrard mentioned it after the match.
Really?
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, I think Gakpo kind of weakens the whole conversation for me, really. 'Cause
Yeah.
all those things you've levelled at Mo, I think you can level at Cody too.
Not all of them. Like genuinely, in terms of pressing and chasing up and all the non-football things.
Do you think?
I think Gakpo's better.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was shocked because I thought the Isak thing was inevitable because we need minutes in his legs.
Yeah.
He needs to get fit. And I thought that Salah had to come on as a Hail Mary. I take all your points about his form and whatnot. I completely agree with every single one of them. But as the manager, I just would have thrown him on, because ultimately the stuff that you could level at Isak, I'd said to Andy last night, I think it was, the fact that he's not fit doesn't matter. If there's one player that can take a chance and score a goal, even when he's not fit, it's Isak. And a lot of us have forgotten how good Alexander Isak is as a footballer. He's phenomenal. His finishing is great. He just does need one moment. But why not up the stakes and throw on Mo Salah as well? Somebody who's probably already in that sort of pissed off mode from not being started. He looked absolutely fuming on the bench. I would have brought him on, and I feel like we're already 2-0 down, and we're not performing particularly well, but as a sort of Hail Mary, that's somebody that I would definitely turn to and just be like, just see what you can do. Particularly in those last 5 minutes when it was headless chicken time and we were looking to score in any way possible and it got absolutely mental. I would have thrown Mo on, but like Mo says, I hope on Saturday he's raging and he puts in a performance.
Okay, so for the Gakpo argument, I take your point. I probably personally would have maybe looked at Rio over Gakpo though. But again, I think it's really hard to make a case to say that Salah would have definitely been able to influence the game. I think, again, we are still thinking of Salah in the way that we all want to think about Salah. All desperately want to think about Salah.
It's hard not to.
And it is hard not to, because we had so much evidence of that Salah. But he's not around anymore. And it hurts me to say it, but he's not. And we have to be honest with what we're seeing from him right now. And yeah, kill me all you want.
You're in trouble.
Maybe it says more about what I think about Gakpo at the moment, but based on nothing other than blind faith, Kev, I still think if we get the first goal at Anfield, crowd gets into it.
100%.
Who even knows?
It goes without saying. I mean, it's fair enough if people think there's absolutely no chance. That's completely fair. But I still have a little bit of belief because of the Anfield factor and what an early goal could do. I feel like if we got the early goal last night, it would have completely been a different tie as well.
You said 3-1 would have been so different to 2-0.
Yeah, it really would have been. It would have been that we've got enough here.
We know what a Liverpool goal looks like.
Yeah, we know what a Liverpool goal looks like, and we can score a goal, and we look good in its attacking sense. I think. It depends how Saturday goes as well, because I know we're going to go on to talk about Saturday, but they've got that game in the way before they face PSG on the Tuesday night. So it depends on how that one goes. But if they can get an early goal and the crowd is up and everyone's up for it, and I know there's a lot of negativity going on around the fan base, not just in terms of our form, but also what's going on with the ticketing and the protests, which I think are absolutely really, really important for this club.
For sure.
But I always think back to the inevitable sort of the Barca game and what Klopp had said in the dressing room. If we fail, then we should fail in the most beautiful way. And in a weird way, in a very Klopp way, I feel like that transcends the players that are in the dressing room, and we have a responsibility as well to sort of fail in the most beautiful way. We can go into it with negativity and maybe not expecting a win, but we can hope for one, and we can do our part to make sure that there's the ground's sort of very fierce and loud, and the players can feel it, and that energy's there. And that might just be the sort of 3 or 4% that the team needs to kick on and be a real attacking force. But there's an awful lot of work to do before that game.
Yeah, Kev mentioned potential protests on Saturday. We're going to hand you over now to John Gibbons and Jay McKenna discussing that.
Yesterday, Jay McKenna, who, amongst many other things, is chair of the supporters board at Liverpool, came in to see us to talk about the conversations that they've been having with the club about the ticket price increase and plans they have for protest for hopefully ongoing conversations with Liverpool over the next few weeks and home games. So here is me talking to Jay about those plans. First of all, thanks for coming in to talk to us. Appreciate it. There's been announcements people have seen online about the supporters board and others, Spy on Corp, disappointments with the plans, and you've had a meeting, and within that meeting, more people from outside who were invited have expressed a desire to protest against them and to have their say on why they think it's unfair. And you're here today to talk about what some of those things might be.
Yeah, so you know, I think firstly, and thanks for having us on to talk about it, it's important to kind of like tell people about this and why and what's happening. So we'd, you know, as a supporters board, and I'm the chair of the supporters board, excuse me, you know, it's said to Liverpool, we don't think fans are like this. I must admit, I've been a little bit surprised at how much they don't like it. You know, I knew there'd be a lot of disappointments and upset and anger in some cases, but I think there's been a lot more anger, a lot more vociferous anger than I was expecting. Certainly, I'd imagine the Liverpool were expecting. That's happened organically. All things that we said to Liverpool that people will be unhappy about. So we done a very quick survey quite quickly to get out to people to just kind of gauge people's thoughts and feelings on it. Overwhelmingly, you know, people saying they don't think prices should go up. They certainly more think they shouldn't go up multi-year. But people saying they wanted to take action, and a whole range of reasons for that, feeling priced out, the sense of unfairness. People talking about protests like we've had in the ground before around flags, and talking about protests we've had in the ground before, including walkouts, and suggesting all those. So we had a meeting, and you know, the sense in that meeting, I would, if I was Liverpool, I'd be more worried about this than if everyone was shouting at you. Everyone was resigned to Liverpool ignoring us, and it was like, well, we're going to show them. And I always say, like, you know, if me and you fell out, John, I'd prefer you to be shouting at me than not talking to me and disappointed, because I'd be like, well, if you're shouting at me, I know where to stand. I feel like it's
and we can work through
it. But if you're not talking to me and you're disappointed, I'd be like, oh, no, what have I done here? And I think fans are really feeling like that with Liverpool. And they were clear to us that they think something needs to be done. You know, words aren't enough. We've written to Liverpool twice now. They've replied once, one saying that they're going ahead, and we've said to them, listen, protests are going to happen now. You know where we are. You know, that door remains open. More than happy to sit around the table with Liverpool and figure out a way forward from this if they want to reconsider. But, you know, that ball is in Liverpool's court. And in the meantime, fans have said we need to protest. And I think there's a couple of elements to that. Firstly, there's the stuff outside of the ground. You know, we will be doing some stuff on social media. We'll be sending a direct message. I think there'll be an open letter being worked up to go direct to the club's ownership to ask them to think again, and we'll be asking fans to sign that. And, you know, say where about you are from in the world, how long you've been going to match, why this matters to you, so we can send that message to them. Because I think in the past it's sometimes been seen as a, you know, it's just Spirit of Shankly, or it's just the back of the cop, or it's just people in Liverpool moaning. And it's not. You know, it's genuinely spread around the world, the messages we've had from, you know, overseas supporters clubs, fans across the country, people who go regularly and people who don't, you know, really annoyed at this and disappointed. There's a big push to kind of encourage people not to spend in the ground, no pound in the ground. Now, we know some people are going to have to, if you've got medical reasons, you know, young kids and they need a drink and stuff like that, you know, no one's going to be like manning the kind of, you know, in front of the kiosks telling you not to buy stuff, but really encourage people not to, because Liverpool portray this as just a few pounds, but we know it is so much more than that, and it's about future generations. Well, if that few pounds matters so much, okay, well, we won't spend it in the ground now. You know, we'll spend it in local businesses, or people will, you know, bring their own things with them. So encouraging people not to do that, and, you know, to delay the season ticket renewals, to show them, you know, people are angry about this. But the real focal point for that is going to be what people do in the ground, and, you know, that's going to start against Fulham, and we've made a plan that will escalate. And the message that sits behind all that, and no doubt we'll get on to Fulham specifically in a minute, is our support is something that the club monetises. It's something it sells around the world. You know, anyone who's not in the COP, take a look at it at the next game and notice that there's advertising hoardings, not just on the bottom, but on the top. It's almost picture postcard perfect for taking that photo. You know, you watch it at the away end at Anfield, whoever we're playing, when You'll Never Walk Alone starts and all the scarves go up and the flags go up and stuff like that. Everyone takes photos of it. Well, you sell that, and that's ours. We provide that for you. So, you know, those flags are going to go. People are being clear, they don't want to bring the flags. We're not giving you those visuals if you can't value us. And then the plan is, and, you know, this will be announced in the coming weeks, but to escalate that against Crystal Palace and then against Chelsea. You know, we've got to get out this weekend and inform supporters, so there'll be leafleting taking place around the ground. But sending that message to the ownership that fans are unhappy, and not just jumping in with the big action at the beginning, but building that action to give Liverpool every opportunity to realise they've made a mistake. And that starts on Saturday and will continue at those games. And we're getting lots of support from the away teams we're playing as well. Fulham supporting groups have been in touch. But I think Fulham are brilliant. We've got really good relationships with them. West Ham, who we've already played, have been in touch offering support. We play Man United in the next few weeks, as you know. We've got Everton, and there's been conversations with their supporters groups about doing joint activity at the away games as well, because this is a wider than Liverpool issue, but we as fans are going to make our voices heard, you know, and we're going to make sure how we feel about this is seen and felt by the ownership and by the club at home and away games, and that starts this weekend.
So, in terms of Fulham, then you said it's step and blocks, and so in terms of Fulham, you know, what could people expect? What are you asking people to get involved with? What should they look out for?
Big message that's coming out, or will have come out now when you're watching this, is from Spine Cop Day on not bringing in their flags to the ground. They usually Spine Cop 1906. There's others who do them, but Spine Cop 1906 are the ones that usually meet in the corner of the Cop. They've got loads of the big wavers and big flags. I know they've been speaking to others, people who have flags on the Cop as well. So big encouragement, no flags. You know, we've seen that in the past. It's a good visual example of how much that support is kind of important to the team and the club, because anyone who looks at the Cop and sees just a few of those flags, and then seeing it back in 2015 and 2016 when there were no flags at all, or there were black flags, it was quite stark. You know, it just looks like it could be anywhere. The Cop doesn't look as special. So it's about not bringing those flags of support, withholding that support and saying to them, well, this is what we give you for nothing, by the way, and you sell it, well, we want a bit back. And the plan will be to build from there, encouraging people not to spend in the ground, and we'll have put out by now, Spirit of Shankly and others, encouraging people to come and collect leaflets to give out around the ground, because, you know, listen, anyone who's watching this has probably heard all these arguments. People on social media, on football forums, will have seen all the debate about ticket pricing. But there's lots of people who go on that ground who don't pay attention to it, maybe only read the Echo or read the paper, you know, aren't online as much as me or you, John, talking about this stuff. And so we'll be out leafleting on Saturday to explain to people why this is important. So if you can and you can volunteer, come along and take some leaflets and give them out. You'll probably give them out in the queue to get in the ground. It'll be nice and easy. But give them out and talk to people. Big, strong message we've got from people is to talk to people. So if you've got it and you're aware of it, but you know, the lad next to you, your dad who goes to the match, your mate who goes to the match, doesn't get it, doesn't care, doesn't agree, have that discussion with them, get that message out to wider people. Fulham is the start. Now, there will be some flags in the ground for PSG at home, but that's because that's the closest game to the anniversary, the Hillsborough anniversary, and people will want to pay their respects, and the Cop will pay its respects as it should, but that's it. The plan isn't that those flags disappear for Fulham and then they're back for Palace and Chelsea. It starts at Fulham and it continues, and other action will escalate beyond that. And I only hope this is out of date. John, by the time they watch it, I only hope it's out of date by the time the game comes round and Liverpool get on the phone and say, listen, we've made a mistake, we want to reconsider, because none of the people involved want to do this. I don't want to be spending my life in WhatsApp groups, on Zoom calls and Teams calls, and, you know, phoning people talking about protests. But fans are angry. They're really disappointed. They're pissed off. We want something to change. And the ball is in Liverpool's court, and that's so... You know, this is about starting to send that message to the club's ownership and to the club that we want you to reconsider this. We told you that, now we're going to show you that.
It's about more than just the rise, isn't it? And I think, you know, you said about speaking to fellow fans, and, you know, when I'm speaking to people, if someone says to me, oh, you know, everything's more expensive now, isn't it? It's just £1 and £2. And I've been a bit guilty of that and thinking, well, you're thinking, well, it's just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But for me, it's about something much wider than that. It's how the club sees supporters, and how I think the club should see supporters, and how you spoke about it just there, as seeing us as an asset rather than an income stream. And if you see something as an asset, then by definition, if you just change your mindset towards it, then by definition, if something's an asset in your business, you think, well, how do we look after it? How do we nurture it? How do we make sure we're getting the most out of it? And rather than just going, and the most out of it isn't the most money. The most out of it is, how do we get them red hot on a Saturday? And then you can market the fuck out of it if you want. But if people are happy and people are feeling valued, and people are feeling like, yeah, when I turn up on a Saturday, everyone throughout the club knows that we're there to help the team and to help us win, and we're all aligned on that. You know, I don't think anyone's got any objection to them then going around the world and going like, give us some money to buy some players.
Yeah. I think one of the phrases I've kind of said in the last few weeks on this, and said it to Liverpool, I'm happy for them to do it on our backs. I'm just not happy to do it out of our pockets. So make more money. We would happily sit down at Liverpool, I'm sure yous would. All, you know, imagine getting the collective minds of the Liverpool supporter base. Because look, we're putting loads of our time and effort into protest, and we're putting loads of our time and effort into creating fan media and creating the content you guys and other people create. Imagine we put our collective efforts sitting around the table, Liverpool saying, go on, what can we do? What can we do to help you with those partnerships to make sure that they're more fruitful and valuable to Liverpool? That means you get more money and you don't have to put ticket prices up to do it. Because you're right, I think it's about a sense of fairness. Liverpool have just made £703 million in revenue. Now, what Liverpool will tell you is costs have gone up 85% in the last decade. Well, yeah, but your revenues have gone up 133%. That's like me winning the lottery, buying a mansion, and then moaning at me, you know, me lecky bills going up. It's like, yeah, mate, but you've won the lottery, you've got loads of money, and you bought a big house. Like, that, their consequences of being successful, they're big club problems. If you've got challenges with raising revenues, let us help you do it. Let us explore every other opportunity first as a sense of fairness. My other big worry, John, in all of this, and listen, I've got a really good job, I can afford it, but if I didn't have the job I've got, if I thought I was earning maybe half the salary I was earning, saying I was going to spend 40, 50, 60 quid on a match ticket would feel like it would have a bigger impact on me. And there's lots of people in this city, the average, you know, wage in this city, the average wage across the country, you know, it doesn't go as far as going to the match regularly. And I know there's issues with access and stuff like that, but this isn't, and for me, it isn't about me affording it now. It's my lad. He's 6, he wants to start going, and I can probably afford to buy him a ticket. I think I'd really struggle if I was buying 2 adult tickets all the time, but I'd buy adult child tickets. But if I wanted to take my other kids then, you know, I've got 3 kids, frankly he's the only one interested at the minute, but if the others wanted to go, it's a big deal to do. Couldn't do that regularly. And yet I wanted to start going to match regularly. Liverpool as a fan base exists as it does because of the people who go regularly. The Monos of the world and yourself, people who go everywhere, the faces you see, they're the ones who've made Liverpool what it is today. You can't have an incidental support where you go a few times a year and have that thing you sell. It doesn't work. The science doesn't work on that. So I want that, but I want my lad. Because I think, you know, people say it's just inflation. I only wish football cared about inflation back in the 90s. Because from 1990 to now, it's gone up over 800%.
Yeah.
You know, and inflation hasn't gone up mine and your wages, people's bills, you know, haven't gone up 800%. So, sounds, if it's inflation, reverse it. But I want in 10, 15, 20 years' time, kids who want to go aren't looking at paying £80, £90 for a ticket, aren't paying in excess of £1,000 for a ticket, because that's where this goes in the next 3 years alone. And it's hard to imagine that in 3 years' time they go, oh, Sam, we've increased them now, we don't want to do that again. They'll keep going up, and you'll be going past £70 for a ticket, and it'll be past £50 on the cop, and a season ticket will be more than £1,000, and people don't have a choice about where they sit. I've got a cop season ticket, and I'm relatively fortunate. Mine's one of the cheaper ones, but you know, if my lad was on the waiting list or he's in the members sale, he doesn't get a choice of where he sits, and it'll be a 60, 70, £80 ticket before long, and that's enough. That's inexcusable given the revenues in the game, but it's going to be unaffordable for people. And so what I've done, go on the match, so I get to pass that on to him. So his mates get to go, so we might be able to afford it, but can his mates, can Ted's mates, can other people who go to the match now, can you be sure your kids will be able to afford this in 10, 15, 20 years time if it keeps going up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we could answer positively to that question.
And you don't want it to be a one-off treat going to the match. You want it to be something that people can do regularly, because, like you say, it does. That's how you pass the culture down at the football club and the traditions and everything. I remember going as a young lad. Well, first of all, going with my dad, but then start going with my mates and meeting people like Peter Evo and them telling the stories. And you're just like that.
Yeah,
you're
learning the songs on the bus.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And meeting people like that in the Stanley, and you're just like looking at them like going like, this is fucking great. You know, the idea of those people like just quietly drifting off, and that's what most people do. Most people don't do it by big.
There's no big
plans.
bang, yeah.
Yeah, there's not this big like, oh, I'm done with this. Most people haven't got the platform for them to do it, even if they wanted to. But most people just go, I'm just sort of jacking it in. And when you lose people, like, I think it is big, because they're the people who sort of pass it down, and also they're the people who, when people come over from like wherever, they want to sit by them, they want to sort of hear the stories. I haven't say his story, it's quite funny. There's an American fellow who I know come over, and he got a ticket, and he was sat there, and he said after the game, I said, how was? He said it was great. He said the only thing was, he said, I had some Americans to the right of me, some Irish, Norwegians in front, and he went, I know it's a bit bad, but I was a bit disappointed. Yeah. And I was like, no,
what did you in front of me?
Basically, I know what you mean, but like, so the people who come, they want to experience the Scousters of it.
They want the heart of the club. Yeah. They want to experience that. So if that's a thing you sell, do it. But similarly, if you think of when Liverpool go around the world, and I hit on this like 10, 15 years ago when we had a period where we were going to Indonesia, and they were having flags. One of the Indonesian Reds made an Am Williams flags, like the one on the cup. Like, They want to replicate that. These are people who are never going to get to be Steven Gerrard or Mo Salah or Virgil van Dijk, and they're not going to get to be John Gibbons and go to Anfield every week. But when they come, they want that. They want these flags. They want that image. They want Anfield. Like, people might say, well, I want to be able to go, and I get it, and I absolutely get it. I've got a lad who wants to start going, and I know there's issues about accessibility. I'm more than happy to do that, but you can't then just get rid of all the other ones who go, because you want to turn up and sing these songs. Well, that fella is the one who started Live Appeared Upon My Chest. This person's the one who created the words to Field to Anfield Road. This is the person who made up the Mo Salah song. They're the people who go now, and they've done that because they started going on coaches to away games and meeting people, and they started going in the Albert and they listened to songs, and Luke who'd sing songs to the Albert, they learned those songs off those people. You can't have history and culture without those people who created it. And this is about saying, well, if I was Liverpool, word I've used, saying to them, and I said this in something else recently, invest in this. Find a way in which you can nurture that and grow it, because you've got something unique. All of your players, managers, past and present, opposing teams tell you how big and impactful this is.
Yeah.
And we're saying to you the impact is. Now, what Liverpool might say is they think I'm wrong, that you're wrong, they think we're lying about that. My worry will be, you will only find out when it's too late. Yeah. When one day you're turning up and it's all just very different, and everyone goes, this is crap, innit?
Yeah.
And
what happens to the fellas who did the flags?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's the flags?
Yeah. And you know, well, that's it, John. There's people around you who go regularly, right? You would let on to them, you would talk to them about life, and they'd hear about you, they'd see you every other week. And I bet you, from like the 25th of May until like the 9th of August, you never see them again. And you sometimes bump into them in town, and you miss him.
Out in the wild?
Yeah, and where's he? What's he doing here? And your missus might, I didn't know he had kids. And your missus might go, who's that? And you go, oh, it's the fellow who sits by me in the match. Yeah. What's his name? Don't know. I just know. So you have these things. That's a thing you should nurture and cherish. And if I'm Liverpool, I'm like, let's invest in that and harness it and use it and sell it. And we will help you do it. And the offer we've made to Liverpool is we will sit around the table and talk to you about sponsorship, and we'll talk to you about costs. You know, we've seen the agent fees that Liverpool have spent. We'll put our collective endeavours into protesting to tackle agent fees than we will tackle, you know, your ticket prices. Imagine that. Imagine flipping it. Imagine us going, oh yeah, we're going to protest, but we're going to protest on the side of the owners to tackle agent fees, because that money they save can go back into the club, can lower ticket prices, can cheapen kids' tickets. Imagine us doing that.
Yeah.
Imagine. And that's the offer we're making them. We would do that. We've made them that offer. But we can't. You can't ask us to do that and then go, but by the way, we're going to jack your price up at the same time, because we're going to lose so much if we do it.
Just to finish, you sort of hinted at it before, and there's a misconception amongst some supporters, amongst some people, that you love all this. And like Spirit of Shankly, they love picking off you in particular, Gareth or whatever. They see you on there, oh, they love all this. Yeah. And you just don't.
No.
Like I saw you at a party a couple of weeks ago and jokingly come over to talk about the ticket prices, and then half an hour later we still saw your lovely missus is rolling her eyes so much, they're in the back of her head, and I'm just like, but you want to talk about the footy, you want to come in here and talk about the footy, you want to go to the match, sing for Liverpool, you just don't want to do any of this
and I want
shit.
to make it better. I want to
just try to walk away once.
I've walked away. I quit. I'm worst kind of volunteer. I volunteered again. Which, funnily enough, I've done an interview with Simon Jordan and Jim White yesterday, which has been on Twitter. Gareth shared that on Twitter, and I came in for a minute and like I was riled up, and I walked in the room and Mrs. was working, and she just went, "Do not get a taste for this again." And because it does occupy you, and because it matters so much, and I'd rather be sitting on the chair of the supporters board. I would rather be sitting around the table at Liverpool saying, like, what do ticket policies look like? What's a fair ticket policy for people? How do we get more kids in the ground? How do we give people the chance who want to go one off, but maintain that kind of people who go all of the time? How do we deal with some of the big challenges? How do we grow the women's game? You know, how do we do stuff for disabled supporters about being visible at the match, which we've talked to Liverpool about in the past? We've had some really, really good supporter board meetings with Liverpool. And something a very, very senior LFC executive said to us is that ticket pricing, and ticketing generally probably, but ticket pricing sucks all the oxygen out the room. And what has now happened? They've done something, and we said we know. They've done this, and now it's all anyone wants to talk about. At a time when we should be sitting talking about Liverpool in Paris, PSG coming to Anfield, and running where we really, really need everyone's attention on getting into the Champions League financially for the club, getting their players up to fitness, what's the future of the manager? That's what everyone should be talking about. And instead, what we're going to have to see is fans go in the game, because what matters now to fans isn't just the next 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, but the next 30 years, because it'll disappear over the hill and far away for our kids and our future generations, and what Liverpool have got, which is so valuable. I'd love them to put a number on it, but you only need to listen to other past, managers of other clubs and players who've been to Anfield talking about how special it is. Do you want to risk that? No, you might risk it and you might win, but if you break that, as you know, once people start flooding away, no one comes back. All the people we know stop going to match. You very rarely see them on the cop again where you're like, oh, he's back. That's it. Once you go, you don't come back. And that's a slippery slope once it starts. And we're saying to Liverpool, protect this, look after it, nurture it, and you can have it very, very valuable for a long time to come.
Jay, thanks for coming in. Best of luck with this weekend. And like you say, well, hopefully we're just all sat there having a pint and there's no need.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
No idea what to expect from Fulham at the weekend, to be honest, Josh. It's got all the sort of hallmarks of the Sunderland 7-7 walkout for me, where I could genuinely, I don't know how, but I could see a world where Liverpool have a bit of a reaction to winning this game of football, and then whatever protests and whatever things sort of scheduled around the ground sort of filter onto the pitch. And to be honest, that could even be the case from the very start. And listen, I'm completely behind the protests, and the players would have no leg to stand on in terms of fan involvement. We've already had all the coverage this week of the sort of Sobersley and fan interaction. There is just a part of me in my head which thinks this is now not a normal game of football for Liverpool to be taking part in.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because this is a game that, I currently feel really low on Liverpool and really low on the manager as well, especially. But that's based on City away, PSG away, 2 really hard games. So you'd like to see what they're capable of now that they're facing Fulham. But because of what you've just mentioned there, it's even despite facing Fulham in a Premier League game and all that, there's still circumstances around the game and all that. And I think you're spot on as well. I think whatever decides, whatever happens, I am fully in favour of it. It's unfortunate that it'll impact the players on the pitch possibly, but it's the club's fault. It's not our fault. So hopefully Liverpool can get a win despite what's going to happen. But based on what we've seen of us lately, I'm not sure that's going to happen either. But we need wins, we need results. It's just such a dark cloud, isn't it, over the club at the moment?
I think it's fascinating how they react to this though, because it's not like...
Do you think they get flagged in advance, told, the players,
Oh,
well, I think they'll have to be, because I mean, they're on social media, so they'll know about it by now. But this is what I was going to say, so for example, the last time that something outside negative could look like it was affecting the players was the Trent situation. Now, there was a couple of times where the players weren't sure what kind of reaction he was going to get. Some people thinking he was going to get booed, some weren't sure. And then it did happen, and it looked like it did affect them. This time, they are well aware in advance that this is going to happen. And 2 things could happen here. The players can be a bit like, well, okay, everyone's upset about this thing, and this thing's happening which isn't going to help us. And they can maybe use that as an excuse and hide behind it and maybe be a bit meek. And then if the game doesn't go their way, they'll be like, oh, well, obviously it wasn't going to help because of all this stuff. Or they can look at it and say, well, look, there's a fan base out there who haven't been very happy with us for a while, but are now really, really keen to let everyone know that they're unhappy with these people who aren't us. So maybe that should free us up to be able to just go on the pitch and express ourselves properly. Now, I don't know which one of these things is going to happen, but you can see a world where either of them does happen. I hope it's the latter. I hope that they can say, well, okay, you know what? No one's going to be shouting at me for a while. They're going to be shouting at the owners. So I'm all right. Let's go out and play some football. But I think, obviously, from a Fulham point of view, from Marco Silva's point of view, he's obviously going to be telling his players to go out there and make as much advantage of it as they can and make it as difficult for Liverpool as they can. And I think Fulham are always going to be one of those funny teams because you look at their team, you look at their squad and think, well, Liverpool should win this game. But
suddenly Harrison Reed comes on.
Yeah, well, exactly. We've said Liverpool should win this game quite a few times. If you look at last time Fulham came to Anfield, it was a 2-2 after Robertson got sent off. The time before, it needed a 90th minute winner. So Fulham have been able to come to Anfield recently and say, hey, this isn't a ground where we just get smacked all around the place for a change. We can come here with our chests out for a bit. How that manifests itself in the game plan, are Fulham more adventurous? Does that help Liverpool find space? or does that mean that they end up retreating into their shell again? Again, like, I wish I knew.
Yeah, and again, Kev, completely necessary from the fans to make sure our sort of voices are heard on these issues with the club on Saturday. Just that sort of concern, really, in general, as someone who wants to enjoy this, like wants to walk this journey supporting Liverpool Football Club with like any kind of like modicum of hope that like there is going to be something to hang my hat on in the future. I'm just really worried this could end up being a pretty negative day all in all.
Potentially, but we've got to do our part, haven't we? I mean, we do our part cheering on the team every single week, and we've got to do our part here to let the ownership know that what they're doing is totally unacceptable. And you've got to put the hard yards in. It could potentially upset people going into the ground, and rightly so. But like Mo says, I was going to say we're not angry at the team. We're very angry at the team, but we're much more angry.
Watching Dominic's obviously.
But we're much more angry at the owners and what it is that FSG are trying to achieve here. It's not about the small amount of money that they're adding to the tickets. It's about a 3-year rise that could potentially be 13% at the end of all this. So yeah, we've got to stand up and do our part, and I think that the supporter groups are doing great work to make sure that we can come together and make our message heard to the owners. But the team still have to show up. I think out of those two scenarios that Mo mentions, the first would just be a PR disaster if they try and, again, sort of, oh, well, it's the fans' fault. And you'd like to think it's something that they've probably thought about, how are we going to treat this? We do understand the situation that's going to be there on Saturday night, and have the intelligence to do the right thing on how they manage their press conferences, how they manage their lead up to the game, how they manage the training sessions and post-match and all that sort of stuff. But Fulham are a tough side. It's funny because last season, before the 2-2, I would have been saying they're a difficult side to play. They're not just going to roll over. They've got some really decent players. Harry Wilson's having the season of his life. They've got a real attacking threat, and they've got a good coach as well in Marco Silva. But interestingly, Mo again said earlier that it was Slot's ability to sort of change a game. Fulham at home last season for me was a big one. When Robertson goes off, he just completely tears up the script changes the shape slightly, and the team just go to war for him. They're, to quote Curtis Jones, they're like dogs, and they're grafting so hard. They've got to cover the extra space because they're down to 10 men. And we get the draw, and it's in the eyes of things, a great result because we wrap up the Premier League so early. So it would do well for the team to look back at previous experiences and live off those and learn from those, and go into this one with real genuine fighting quality and chance to try and get a good result here, because a draw won't do this time.
Yeah. Well, interesting to see how the whole of Liverpool Football Club reacts in the next few days. One thing is for sure, it's got to be better than it was in Manchester, it's got to be better than it was in Paris, and it's got to be better than it's been in Boston.